I never thought I'd be the guy posting something like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 8 years now. We seemed solid, a normal couple, I thought. She's ambitious, sharp-tongued, kind of bitchy sometimes, but she's also beautiful and confident. I always admired her drive. We had our issues, sure, but nothing out of the ordinary, or so I believed. Lately, though, I started noticing small things that didn't add up. She'd be on her phone more than usual, texting, secretive. When I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd brush me off or change the subject. She started dressing differently, more provocative, especially when she'd go out shopping or to her girls' nights. I told myself maybe she was just trying to feel good about herself, but deep down, I wondered if something else was going on. Then there were the little lies. She'd say she was working late or going to a spa appointment, but I'd find her out past midnight. Sometimes with that same personal shopper, she always raved about Marco. I'd seen them together a few times, at restaurants, close enough to be obvious they were more than friends. Still, I told myself I was overthinking. Maybe I was jealous or paranoid. After all, Lisa was good at hiding her tracks, at least I thought she was. But the biggest sign yet was when I noticed her phone kept buzzing at odd times. I saw messages that made my stomach turn, flirty, suggestive stuff, mostly from Marco. She deleted some of the messages, but I knew how to dig around. I found them in her trash, a string of texts that made my blood boil. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was incredible, and even your secret's safe with me. It was a punch to the gut. I'd never felt so betrayed, so humiliated. I remember sitting on the couch that night trying to process what I'd found. My mind was racing, hurt, anger, disbelief. How could she do this to me? I thought about confronting her right then, but I needed a plan. I couldn't just explode without knowing everything. I needed proof, something concrete. I decided to keep digging to see if I could catch her in the act or find more evidence. Little did I know, I was about to uncover something far worse than I expected. The next few days felt like walking on thin ice. I became hyper-aware of every move Lisa made, every word she said. She was still acting normal, well, as normal as someone who's hiding a secret can act. She'd go out shopping, return with bags, and give me that smirk when I asked about her day. I started noticing her behavior around certain stores, especially that boutique downtown where she always seemed to disappear for hours. One afternoon, I decided to follow her. I didn't tell her, of course. I just parked a few blocks away and watched her walk into that boutique. She was dressed to impress, tight jeans, high heels, and that smug attitude she puts on when she's feeling herself. I saw her walk straight to the dressing rooms, and my heart started pounding. I had a strange feeling, like this was the moment I'd find out the truth once and for all. I waited outside, lurking behind a pillar, pretending to browse nearby. I didn't have to wait long. The store's security cameras kept a record of everyone who entered and exited after hours. I decided to check the footage. I knew it was risky, illegal, even, but I had to see what was going on in there. I convinced myself I was doing it for closure, for my peace of mind. I managed to get access to the store's security feed somehow. Maybe through a friend who knew a guy or a hacker I found online. I don't remember exactly. What I saw chilled me to the bone. The cameras recorded Lisa and Marco in the dressing rooms after closing hours, clearly engaged in some intimate act. They weren't just shopping. They were having sex right there behind closed doors with the cameras recording everything. The footage was grainy but unmistakable. They were on the bed, kissing, touching, and then the act. I couldn't believe it. My stomach dropped. I sat there, eyes glued to the screen, feeling a mixture of rage, betrayal, and despair. I had never felt so humiliated. My wife, my partner, was cheating on me with her personal shopper, Marco, a guy I'd trusted enough to think was just her friend. And she was doing it in a store, in front of security cameras, with no regard for anything. It was like she wanted me to find out. I felt my fists clench as I watched her moan softly in the footage, her hand clutching Marco's hair. I knew I couldn't keep this to myself anymore. I had evidence now, solid, undeniable proof. My mind raced. I had to confront her, but I also knew I had to be smart about it. I didn't want to make a scene without knowing what would happen next. I needed a plan to make her pay for this betrayal. That's when I realized this wasn't just about catching her cheating. It was about showing her I knew everything, about making her understand she'd crossed a line I'd never forgive. But how? That was the question. The confrontation was inevitable now. I couldn't unsee what I'd seen, and I couldn't pretend I didn't know. I spent the next couple of days trying to gather my thoughts, planning how I was going to approach her. I knew she'd lie, she always did, so I wanted to be prepared. I kept the footage on a USB drive, hidden in my drawer just in case I needed it. I was never trusting enough to show her outright, not yet. One evening, I finally decided to face her. We were alone in the house. She was in the kitchen, pretending to be busy with her phone, probably texting Marco or whoever else she was cheating with. I sat on the couch, took a deep breath, and then called her into the living room. She looked at me with that bitchy smile, the one that always made me want to punch her. She knew I was upset, but she played innocent well. "Lisa," I said, voice steady but furious, "we need to talk." She blinked, raised an eyebrow, and sauntered over. "What's wrong, Mikey? You look tense." I pulled the USB drive from my pocket, not even bothering to hide it anymore. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "I know what you've been doing. I saw the videos. You and Marco, you've been fucking in the dressing rooms after hours." Her face dropped for a split second, then she recovered with that trademark bitchy smirk. "Oh, come on, Mike. You're overreacting. Those were just some harmless fun. You're reading too much into it." She crossed her arms, trying to act dismissive, but I saw the fear behind her eyes. I pressed the drive into her hand. "Harmless, that's your excuse. You think I don't know how many times you've lied to me about where you're going, how you've been sneaking around." She tried to deny it, of course. "It's not what you think. Marco's just a friend, and those videos are taken out of context. You're seeing what you want to see. I told you I wasn't happy, so I..." "Stop lying," I cut her off. "You've been cheating on me for months with Marco. You're sleeping with him in a store behind security cameras. You think I don't feel humiliated, that I don't feel stupid for not seeing it?" She scoffed, trying her usual manipulative act. "You're being paranoid, you're jealous. Marco's just helping me pick out clothes, and you're turning it into some sick obsession. I don't owe you an explanation for my life." That was it. I felt my blood boiling. I never wanted to see her again, not after that. It was like a switch flipped inside me. I wanted her to know this wasn't just a fling, it was a betrayal of everything I believed in. Without thinking, I told her I was done, that I was leaving, and she could go ahead and lie all she wanted, but I'd seen enough. I could never trust her again. The worst part was her reaction. She looked at me like I was the crazy one, like I was overreacting. She yelled, called me insecure, accused me of spying on her like some crazy stalker. But I didn't care. I knew the truth now, and that truth was going to haunt her. I packed my things and walked out that night, feeling empty but somehow relieved that I finally knew the real Lisa, bitchy, manipulative, and a cheat. I was done, or so I thought, but the aftermath was far from over. The days that followed were a blur of emotion, anger, sadness, betrayal. I moved out of the house, taking only what I needed, leaving her with the mess she'd created. I thought I'd feel relief, maybe even a sense of victory, but mostly I just felt hollow. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that footage, her moaning, Marco's face, the way she looked so confident in her lies. It was like a knife twisting in my gut. But Lisa didn't give up that easily. She kept calling, texting, sending those fake apologies. "It was a mistake," she'd say. "I didn't mean for it to happen," or "You're overreacting. Marco is just a friend." She'd even try to manipulate me into coming back, saying she'd change, promising she'd end it with Marco. Yeah, right, I knew better now. I wasn't falling for her lies anymore. Still, I wanted to make her hurt, to make her realize what she'd lost. I decided to get revenge, not in some petty, childish way, but in a way that would shake her to her core. I knew her schedule, her routines, her weaknesses. I started tracking her, following her on discreet nights out, just to see who she was really with. I found out she'd been going back to that boutique, meeting Marco in secret, even after I had confronted her. That made my blood boil even more. One night, I took it a step further. I hired someone to set up a few cameras outside her apartment. Not to stalk her or invade her privacy, just enough to catch her in the act if she was sneaking around again. I wanted her to know I wasn't going to let her get away. With this, I needed her to feel that her little world was crumbling just as she'd shattered mine. Then I sent her a message, simple, direct. I told her I'd been watching, that I knew she was still cheating and that I had proof. I didn't even threaten her, I just wanted her to understand that I was serious. I said I hoped she enjoyed her lies because I was done playing nice. I didn't want her to think I was weak or that I'd forget what she did. That night I watched her face change when she saw my message. She tried to deny it, but her eyes gave her away. She knew I was serious. The worst part, seeing her panic. She tried calling me, begged me to come back, said she'd do anything to fix it, but I wasn't interested. I was done with her manipulations, her lies, her bitchy attitude. I realized I'd been a fool to trust her, to believe she was the woman I fell in love with. Now I saw her for what she really was, a cheat, a liar, and a user. That's when I made a decision. I told her to stay. Away, that I wanted nothing to do with her anymore. I blocked her on everything, phone, social media, even her email. I didn't want to see her face or hear her voice again. It was the only way I could start healing. I knew she might come back, try to manipulate her way into my life again, but I was stronger now. I was done being the victim of her games. Looking back, I realize how much this whole nightmare has changed me. I learned that trust is fragile, and when it's broken, it's almost impossible to fix. I learned that some people will lie and cheat without remorse, thinking they can get away with it. And I learned that revenge, when done right, can be a way of reclaiming your dignity. Not that I wanted to destroy her, just to make her see that she couldn't hurt me and get away with it. That's what this was really about, taking back some control in a situation where I felt completely powerless. And honestly, it's the only thing that's helped me start to move on. After I cut all contact and kept my distance, I thought I'd feel some sense of peace. Instead, I just felt numb. The betrayal hit me harder than I expected, and honestly, I kept replaying everything in my head: how she lied, how easily she cheated, and how she thought she could get away with it. It was like a punch to the stomach every time I remembered her smug face when she denied everything. I couldn't believe I was stupid enough to trust her for so long. But here's the thing. I also started seeing the truth behind her words. All those times she called me insecure or paranoid. It was her way of gaslighting me into doubting myself. She wanted to keep her secrets hidden, and she was good at it until I found the proof. That realization was a double-edged sword. On one hand, I felt angry that she'd manipulated me so effortlessly. On the other, I was grateful I finally saw her for who she really was. It was the kind of clarity that made it easier to let go, even if the pain was still fresh. I knew I had to move on, but it wasn't easy. Every day, I'd wake up and find myself thinking about her, about Marco, about everything I'd lost. I'd remember the good times and wonder if I had been blind to her true nature all along. Sometimes I'd get angry, sometimes just hopeless. It was a roller coaster, and I was stuck somewhere in the middle. Still, I kept telling myself I deserved better. I deserved someone who wouldn't cheat behind my back, who wouldn't lie to my face. One thing I did was focus on myself. I started hitting the gym again, working out like crazy. It helped burn off some of the frustration and made me feel more in control. I also started hanging out with friends, reconnecting with old hobbies I'd abandoned. It wasn't about forgetting her, not entirely, but about rebuilding my life step by step. I needed to remind myself that I was still here, still capable of happiness without her. Over time, I realized I wasn't alone in this. Plenty of people go through similar betrayals, and some come out stronger. I saw online stories and heard from friends about how they dealt with similar heartbreaks. That helped me accept that this pain was temporary, that I'd get past it. But honestly, what stung most was knowing how much I'd trusted her, how I'd believed in our future. I kept asking myself, why did I overlook all those signs? Why did I give her so many chances to betray me? Now I see it clearly. I was too comfortable. I thought we had a good thing, but she was always hiding something. I guess I ignored the warning signs because I didn't want to admit the truth, that people can surprise you in the worst ways. Looking back, I wish I had caught her earlier, but then again, maybe I needed this wake-up call to finally realize my worth. I know what I want now: someone honest, loyal, and respectful, and I refuse to settle for less. So here I am, trying to piece my life back together. It's a slow process, but I'm getting there. I won't let her or Marco define me. I'll move forward stronger, more cautious, and maybe a little more skeptical. But that's okay, because I learned a hard lesson. Never ignore the red flags and never trust someone who lies to your face. I hope that anyone reading this who's going through something similar takes it as a warning. Don't be naive, protect yourself, and don't let betrayal break you. You're better than that. Looking back now, I realize I've come a long way from that devastated guy who found out his wife was cheating behind his back. The whole experience has left scars, some deep, some still tender, but it's also taught me a lot about trust, boundaries, and what I truly need in a relationship. I don't regret discovering the truth. If anything, I'm grateful I finally saw her for who she was rather than living in that false bubble of comfort. What I've learned most is that betrayal cuts deep, but it can also serve as a wake-up call. It forced me to reevaluate my standards and remind myself that I deserve honesty and respect. I shouldn't have to second-guess the people I love or wonder if they're hiding something in the shadows. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's almost impossible to mend. That's why I chose to cut her out completely, not out of spite, but because I knew I couldn't live in a relationship built on lies. I also realized how important it is to listen to your instincts. I had those small doubts before, but I brushed them off, thinking, I was just overthinking. Don't do that. Red flags are there for a reason. If something doesn't sit right with you, trust yourself. Sometimes the truth is painful, but it's better than living in denial. Most of all, I learned that revenge isn't about hurting someone else. It's about reclaiming your power. I didn't want to stoop to her level or ruin her life, but I did want her to feel the consequences of her actions. Seeing her panic, her lie, her desperation, those moments gave me a strange sense of closure. I realized I was stronger than her manipulations, and I didn't need her to validate my worth. Now, I focus on building a future that doesn't include her shadow. I've started dating again, cautiously, but I'm open to discovering what real trust and respect look like. I know I'll get there. I'm not perfect, but I'm better for having gone through this. For anyone out there dealing with a similar betrayal, here's my advice. Don't ignore your feelings. Face the truth, no matter how ugly it may seem. Cut out what harms you and take the time to heal. It's not about forgetting or moving on hastily. It's about learning to trust yourself again. In the end, I understand now that the pain of betrayal, while brutal, can be a catalyst for growth. It's a reminder to value yourself more, to never settle for less, and to always keep your eyes open. Because once you've been betrayed, the biggest victory is reclaiming your strength and choosing to be better for yourself.